Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen.
And I'm John Johnson.
And you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. The podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today we got a fun, I guess it's our Patreon episode, and this month was a different one. All right, we let John have the controls of everything. He got the reins. He took them from my hands, and he said, "Fuck you! I'm going to do this. I'm doing the what they're going to pick this month." So. John picked the 4 books that our patrons voted on for for this podcast.
It was April Showers Bring May Flower Comics.
You're such a fucking nerd.
I thought it was a fun little pick 'em grab bag idea.
Sure.
Anyway,
John's grab bag. He's also a dork. Anyway, So the one that won was called Bountiful Gardens, which I have never heard of. John, had you ever heard of this before you researched?
No, I had never heard of it. The only one that there are 2. There was a Batman title in there, and then I was really hoping to have to make Matt read a Man Thing, because I had put a Man Thing one in there. I refuse
to.
But but it just barely lost out.
All right, hold on. Much like Metallica, if you're a Metallica fan, you don't like Megadeth. If you're a Swamp Thing fan, like everybody knows I am, you don't like Man Thing. Now, that might not be for everybody, but that was the school I grew up in, all right? So
you can have your cake and eat it too. Why can't they both coexist together?
If you're a real fan of either, you don't like the other one, all right? That's a hard stance.
Just like the Indiana Jones, whatever.
Yeah. So just tell everybody, John, how did you pick these 4 books to get judged or to get voted on?
I looked for comics with some kind of plant.
The word plant or garden in the title?
Not in the title per se, but like just within the story. So like with Batman, obviously could have gone, Poison Ivy, but I looked for like, does he have any other plant-esque base villains? And I found some. I looked for things that either had to do with like something involving like some kind of floral theme to them, not necessarily just in the title.
Okay. So. Well, yeah, I had never heard of this book. I've never read anything by the writer, never seen anything by the artist. So it was pretty interesting as far as that goes. Like, when I go into a comic like that, I'm very much biased as like, well, I haven't heard anything about this, so it's probably not good. Like, that is my initial go into. I don't know about you, John. You're probably more positive. But like, if I haven't heard anything about a comic, then that means like no one's talking about it. No one's saying anything.
Well, you got your pulse on it. That's the difference in this. I'm still that, like, even with doing this podcast for as long as we have, I definitely read more comics outside on my own than I did before. Well, I don't know. You
read more comics because we have to read them monthly, but you don't go to the comic book store and buy comics weekly like I do.
No, not weekly, but I have gone out of my way. Like, if I see something, I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. I will read other ones on my own. But yeah, I also I'm kind of like, I give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm one of those comic readers. It's like, oh, that cover looks cool, and then I'm like, what's the story about? Oh, that sounds fun. Like, let's check it out. Like,
I'll do that too. I'm definitely susceptible to good covers, but like,
but you're like you said, you have your finger on the pulse too. So you're like, hey, have you heard about this? Or like, I feel like I've heard about this artist or this writer is up and coming. Like, those things where, as I know the artists and writers that we've done enough, or ones that are, popular enough that I've heard them in the zeitgeist of pop culture. But outside of that, like, I don't know.
Okay. Well, yeah. So this actually had a hump to get over for me because I'd never heard of it before. And I, like I said, can be a little bit judgmental if I've never heard of a comic. I mean, it had like 4 out of 5 stars on Hoopla where we read it, and that's not bad. I mean, like it only had like a couple reviews or a couple 4 stars. So I thought that was at least a positive sign, but we'll get into it. But it definitely had like the first, if I just read the first issue and like left it at that, I probably would not have continued. You know, like if it was on the stands and I picked it up and I'm like, oh, okay, here's the thing, I probably wouldn't have continued. But I definitely think it got way better the further you got into the comic. So, so let's just start off. We'll say, or the writer of this is Ivy Noel Weir, which I've never heard of, but this, I don't know if this is like her first book or not. It's a Mad Cave comic, which is like an indie publisher, but they're fairly well known. They've done some really well known books like Nottingham, which is like a retelling of the Robin Hood story from the point of view of the sheriff of Nottingham. So that's fun. And I've read that, and that's really good. And then they've done some other books that I've read. So they're like a solid publisher. Like I wouldn't say like, oh, don't read. Like I definitely have read books from them, and I look forward to reading books from them when I see their logo. So I'm like, okay, they tend to pick interesting books to read or to like publish. So, and then the artist is Kelly Williams, who I've never heard of either. So, that was like okay, I don't know anything about this other than it's about plants because John made it's the theme of the month or whatever. So, so yeah, and you're gonna have to help me with this, John. Hopefully, you wrote down all the names of the characters in this because I was like, I don't remember any of the names of these kids.
No, I did, and actually, because I did made a point of that too, because they don't say the name of one of them until like halfway through the comic. Actually.
Yeah,
at least not that I.
So yeah, they actually name them. They all call each other, or a lot of them call each other by their like profession names. So they'll be like, "Oh, you're the botanist, or you're the engineer, or you're the architect, or whatever." And so that was kind of interesting, I thought. But yeah, so it's a 5-part.
Yeah, I got all their.
Oh wait, what were you saying, John?
I was saying I got all their names, and I did look up just kind of briefly. So both Ivy and Kelly, this is not their first rodeo. They've been going around. Ivy's actually award.
The first what, John? The first rodeo.
Their first rodeo. Their first. Their first comic. Ivy has actually several writing awards too. American Library Association, Dwayne McDuffie Award for Diversity in Comics.
There you go.
So hell yeah. So yeah, not their first rodeo. Not their first comic.
Why do you say it like that? Why are you saying it like that? It's rodeo. Say rodeo like you're a Texan. God damn it.
Whipped cream.
Whipped cream. Why? Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, Bountiful Garden. It's a 5-issue series. Like I said, it's collected in 1 volume now. So this is volume 1. I hope I don't know if there's going to be a second one because, like I said, I've never heard of this. So, but we'll get to why I hope there's going to be a second one. But part 1 starts off, and this book is basically like the setup from Alien. Like there's a ship, it's floating through space, and it gets stopped for some reason. We don't know why. Well, we know why, possibly, because we see coming from space like these giant vines and stuff that are potentially the reason for the stopping of the ship. But the people on the ship are in hypersleep or stasis or whatever you call it, and then they wake up because the ship has stopped and has woken them up for an emergency. And the people on the ship are all kids. We learn that they're on a mission to colonize other areas, I guess, for the world, and they're going to a specific colony. But no one has heard anything, right? No one has heard anything from these other colonists.
So they're going on a terraforming mission. To hopefully start another colony somewhere. And I guess they do kids now. Because these kids are all kind of like definitely really smart. I mean, almost geniuses, it seems. But they say that they've been a lot of they've had other ones go out, not necessarily to the same place. They do make note of that, like they've gone out, but they never hear back. And the word is like, oh, the comms are just too weak. That's why they never hear back. But I'm sure they're doing great.
Yeah, I can't believe that.
Good start.
That's insane that they would just be like, yeah, we're just sending our children out here. Hopefully they're all right. We don't know. We haven't heard anything for like 100 years from the other colonies, but I'm sure they're flourishing and have lived for a long time. So we meet the first couple people. Jonas is like kind of the main guy we're following the whole time. And then Marnie is girl that we're following the whole time, like the main characters for the most part. There's another one that's kind of the main, but other than that, how many kids are there? There's like 6, right?
There are, so you've got Jonas. He is the first one to wake up. He's the main guy we follow. He's the architect of this group. Marnie, she is the botanist of the group. There's 2 more that wake up, Kamari and Anya. They're both engineers. Then we have Jane. She is I guess kind of like a bioengineering scientist. And then Kurt, who he's the one I swear I didn't see his name until
I think he's just the muscle. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the Captain Muscle Marine dude.
Yeah, he's the guy who's supposed to keep everybody safe. Because one thing I thought was interesting. So if you're sending people on a mission to like terraform a planet, you don't know what's on it. Wouldn't you send like people who are trained in somewhat, maybe they're not experts in everything, but like, so you have the Marine who knows weapons and stuff, but the other characters can also understand what a weapon is and how to use it. Same with, maybe bioengineering. Okay, we don't understand that as much as Jane, but the other characters could be trained somewhat so they could help her out. And if Jane died, they might be able to keep it going. You know what I mean? Like, it seems kind of stupid to have kids or people that are just trained in one job specifically and don't know anything else about the other stuff that would be involved in terraforming a planet. So it just seems like it's possibly a bad idea. I
was surprised there was no like a singular adult role or like an AI on the ship, just kind of like being like the guide.
That's true, because there is like an AI that wakes him up, but like I guess it's just the protocol of the ship. It's not really like a sentient AI or something.
Yeah, it's not like Hal's an extreme, but like it's not something that's like, oh, like don't forget to do this today or whatever. It's not like a guide. Anyway.
Yeah, so we learned pretty fast that they're stuck. They don't know why their ship stopped. We immediately get their places in the pecking order for this group. So Kurt being the only weapons trained guy, he's definitely like the asshole who's a meathead and is very aggressive towards everybody. And Jane is the youngest, I think. A lot of these, so the kids range from, I would say, 11 to 17 is what I would think. Kurt being 17.
We don't get. Yeah, I'm just gonna say we don't get specific ages, but that's you can kind of tell a little bit from. It seems like their maturity levels at least.
Yeah. Because Jane immediately starts
smart.
Crying and stuff, and she's like 11 probably. So
we're gonna be stuck here in space. I feel. You know what? I say maturity, but that would probably be me. I'd be like, what? The engines are stalled? We haven't got to our destination yet? I think they're like 10 years, they say, away. They woke up 10 years early.
Yes.
And now they're hovering over this planet. I think that would be my first reaction. Be like, oh God, what are we going to do? We're going to be stuck here and die in space.
Yes, and then I would be stuck having to make you feel better and then fix everything.
True. That's why you come along.
I'm the maintenance. I'm ship maintenance. That's what they're missing in this. Who's taking care of the ship? God damn it.
That's your main problem with this.
Yes, exactly. That's my main problem with everything. But anyway, so yeah, we find out that Jane, who's like the bioengineer person, she's probably the youngest because she starts freaking out immediately, and everybody else has their job. They're not freaking out as much, but they all decide like they need to go check out the planet. There's a team that needs to go to the planet, so they have to decide how to split it up. So who is it? Jane. So the bioengineer Jane, the 2 engineers stay on board, right? Yeah, and and then Kurt, Jonas, and Marnie go to the planet. So Kurt, the Marine or whatever, and then the botanist and the architect go to the planet. So that's like the first thing we find. We do see a little bit of like possibly what's going on right away as Marnie is in her little garden area where she's growing plants and stuff. She is, I don't know, just admiring her plant life. And we see like a vine come out and like hiss at her. And then she like turns around quickly, but then it vanishes. So did you think that this was real, or or do you think it's like in their minds? Because later on it invades their minds, like this plant consciousness.
Yeah, I wasn't too sure. I feel like there's like it was a creepy thing at first, just kind of like just barely avoiding their, it's that thing you see out of the corner of your eye and then it's gone. So
Right, but did you think it was actually there, like in the plants, or did you think it was just in their minds, like it's invading their heads?
no, I thought it was actually there.
Okay, I did too. And then I kept thinking, like, where is it then? Like, you know.
There are some things later I'll give you that make it seem like maybe things, since like you said there's some mind exploration stuff, but in general I feel like there's something there. Maybe it's not a giant plant thing yet.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe it's like a baby plant. But
Yeah.
but yeah. So the architect, the marine, and the botanist go out to the planet, and as they like get, I guess they sleep the night before or something, or they're on their way there and they have to like be in some kind of pod where they're sleeping. I don't know. I guess it's their sleep pods. Jonas has a like nightmare of landing on the planet, what it's going to be like, and it's actually the plant like reaching out to him in his consciousness while he's asleep, because it's like it tries to like tempt him. It's like, don't you want to like, find your place and you can be part of this wonderful thing, and all you have to do is sacrifice. And then he wakes up and he's like, what the fuck, that was weird. So we get this hint that there's definitely like a consciousness on this planet, and it's showing them like beautiful jungles, like lush stuff, and it's trying to, at least with him, coerce him into siding with him and doing something about a sacrifice. We don't know exactly yet, but so the next day they actually wake up and they go to the planet, and this planet fucking sucks. Immediately I would be like, no, if we landed on this planet, it's just raining 100%. There's thunder and lightning storms 100%, much like Alien. If you get, at least with that, it's like there's a spaceship that we hear. We know there's like something here that we're supposed to find. With this, they don't know what they're going to find on the planet, why they're landing. They're just like, well, we got to see if something is causing us to stay here. And so they land on this planet, and it's just like god-awful rainstorm the whole time. They get out, they begin to walk, they realize, oh, the air is breathable. So they take, I don't know why you would take your fucking helmet off when it's pouring rain. So the rest of your body's like dry in your spacesuit, hopefully. It's not getting down your neck area. But the rest of their head is just like being in the rain. I fucking hate the rain. I would not do that. At least rain on my face. I don't want rain on my face. So, but they immediately, like, as they look around, they start to see like ruins and stuff. They also find like plant life, and they're getting like readings all over from their like little wrist comms and stuff that are saying like there's life here. So they see, and I don't know why they didn't understand this from the beginning, because if I was on an alien planet and it's like there's life here and I don't see anything but plants, I'd be like, obviously it's the plants. But it takes them quite a while to realize that there are sentient plants on this planet.
My assumption from that was that they were like, maybe it reads higher life forms, and they're like, well, these are just plants, so it can't be that. Maybe they're below the surface, or they're like hiding or something.
Yeah, but if you're on an alien world, and you don't know,
yeah, they're just dumb plants.
Yeah, why would you assume that they're just stupid plants? And even right away, like the botanist sees the plant, and she goes to reach out and touch it, and it cowers away from her. And she's like, oh, it's scared. It's shy. And then she gets called away. And then as she's walking away, you see the plant like try to attack her, but it's too far away from the vines, so it can't. Yeah, so it's like, okay, obviously, if you can see the plant is shy, you know it has emotions. No plants on Earth do that, so it seems fairly obvious that,
there are some plants that if you like touch them, they're like, and they curl up. There's some ferns that do that.
Yeah, very slowly. This was immediate. Like, I have a consciousness and I'm moving backwards from you.
You're saying the plants here don't have consciousness?
I don't know, John.
I
am not a scientist / psychic, a plant psychic, so I can't tell you. But anyway, so that's just kind of like, obviously there's something weird going on with the plant life here. It tried to attack her, but she didn't notice. So as they're walking, like I said, they see ruins. They find this giant castle or like structure. I don't know if it's like a tower is I guess what it was.
Yeah.
And I want to know how the fuck this got built and when. If these plants have been here, pretty much it's just them because they kill everything else. Who built this fucking tower? John, I'm asking
some
you.
of the. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because the rest of the place just looks like rocky ruins.
Yeah, it's just one tower.
There's this one giant like tower, and they're like, oh, it must be like a worship tower or something, and it kind of resembles that as far as like there's like a formation they see in there that kind of looks like some kind of deity maybe thing that's kind of planty. They're like, that's another thing. The deity kind of looks a little planty.
Yeah.
So they're like, it'd be like, well, maybe they worship the plants.
Well, that's the thing. But they only see this one area with this tower, and then there's like a little stone hut, possibly like a cave area where people live because there are hieroglyphics and drawings on the walls.
Of plants
and shit. Yeah, like you said, you see a person, you see a spaceship that looks a lot like theirs in these hieroglyphics, and you see them like one person like raising something up to a giant plant god, much like Cthulhu or something. It reminded me a lot of like Hellboy in that it's some kind of like plant god or something.
Yeah.
This is like if Mojo or Mogo the Green Lantern planet went evil or something. That's what this would be. So yeah, then we get part 2 starts pretty much right where we started. They start right wherever we left off. They start back at the spaceship. So we are seeing. I did like this the way they cut back and forth between the planet surface and what's going on in the spaceship, and it really seems like if you were raised from birth to be like whatever your class is, because they talk about the class system. Like my parents were worker class, so the only way I could get out was to volunteer for this mission because I was so smart. They took me. If that's the case, you would think that like the kids in this spaceship would be, like back in the day, kids were a lot more not kiddish earlier on, right? Like you had 9-year-olds like threshing the fields and shit, right? Like there was responsibility, so you had to grow up extra fast back in the day. You couldn't just be a kid and play video games or whatever till you're like 24. And then, so like you do nowadays, right? You had to literally, your survival and your whole family survival depended on you being able to grow up fast enough to start working earlier. So I would imagine that like if you are in a society where, you have classes where you're kind of forced, you're trained early on to do a certain job, and maybe you can get out of those class systems easier. Like if you're really smart, you can get out of your working class profession. But even with that, all these kids act like they're of nowadays age though. Like, right? Like, yeah. Like the 17-year-old is like, bro, you're so fucking stupid. Like, and he's just like, the Marine guy is like, being a dick to everybody. Then everybody else is like, no, I'm a little kid, but I'm a botanist. And it's like, dude, if you were trained to like this hardcore so that you were competent enough to do a space mission, you would not be acting like children. You know what I mean? Like you would already be just like back in the day, like you were already an adult by the age of like 13. You know what I mean? Like, or at least you were looked in society at that, right? Like you had to get married at 13. You had to start having a profession.
Whoa.
That's what they did back in the day, right?
To me, it's right.
No, but I'm saying, that's what happens. Yeah. A society does that for a reason. And it's not because you're in whatever situation where they have to send people out to go make other colonies. Obviously something's wrong on Earth, right? So yeah. We're assuming the civilization has been forced in order to survive, to send children out. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're sending children out and you're training them as such, they would be at a certain maturity level. You know what I mean? They'd be able to complete those missions is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? So they acted a little immature for what I would think.
Well, I don't know. I took their kids still. They're down at heart.
John, that's not a thing. That's a societal thing, I think. If you raise a child from like age 2 to be like, you are a janitor. Here is your broom, and you will go with me to work every day. That kid will be growing up very fast, and they will be a good janitor at like age 10. You know what I mean? It's like formative years. Formative years. What do you mean you don't know? This has been society. This has been history. What's the argument?
I know, but I'm saying that, like, I don't know. They still might
John, the Spartans were raised from birth to be warriors. Didn't you read 300 with me?
I did. Yeah. And then, you know what? They were raised, and then they're like, hey, but do you want to, throw some Jackson and balls too? And they're like, yeah, let's do that for like 10 minutes, and then we'll go to war. Anyway.
They didn't do that. I don't think they did that. If they played any games, it was like, let's see how much stuff we can kill. And whoever kills the most is the coolest guy. So, but anyway, that was just one of my gripes, like from the way the kids are handled in this. They're treated like they're kids from nowadays, not whatever fictional society this is set in, where you would send children out into space to terraform a planet, if you know what I mean. So yeah, anyways, the reason I bring that up is because we get a lot of bickering between the engineers and Jane. Everybody treats Jane terribly. And because, like I said, she's the youngest, and they're just like, get the fuck out of here, Jane. Now, I don't know about you, but I thought this was setting up some big Jane moment. Where like Jane ends up being the crux of like the salvation or something.
Yeah, I honestly thought Jane was either going to be like the hero character, or like have a turn of like, oh, none of these people respect me.
Yeah, maybe like she would commune with the one plant god and then become all planty and powerful or something. I don't know, but that didn't happen. None of that happened. So, spoilers. They just set up this like little whiny girl who is not really useful, and then leave it. Like they don't really do anything with her. So I was like, okay, that's an interesting move to make. But then we cut to the planet surface again. We see, once again, it's shitty. It's raining all over. They find a cave that is apparently used to be a domicile of some sort for whoever lived on here prior to whatever civilization lived here to build that structure, I'm assuming. And they, like I said, they find hieroglyphics and stuff. And then the Marine guy is like a big asshole to both Jonas, the architect, and Marnie, the botanist. So he's like, fuck you guys. I'm going to go search out here in the wilderness and see what I can find. So, he does like the classic horror movie trope of he just leaves. And what were you going to say?
I'm going to go on my own. Nothing bad will happen.
No, surely nothing will happen to the Marine guy. No worries. And he's not even wearing a red shirt, but he might as well be, right? So
yeah.
So he goes off, and then the other kids are like, check out these hieroglyphs. Anyway, I'm kind of tired. And I don't know how you can sleep like that, but they do. They fall asleep. And then we cut back to the ship, and we find out from the engineers that there's something weird on the planet. Like, there is no reason why their ship is broken. And that's why their engineers stay behind, is because they know the ship better than anybody. So they're doing diagnostics on the ship. They're like, there's nothing from the planet holding us here. There's no, like, I guess, what would that call, like a beam or anything that's like holding them there. And there's also nothing that is physically wrong with the ship that they can find through all their diagnostic checks. So one of the engineers is like, I'm going to go outside the ship. I'm going to go on a spacewalk. It's got to be something wrong with like the engines or something on the outside of the ship then. And you're all like, in my mind, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, no, you don't do that. But this kid's like, no, I'm totally doing it. What could happen? What could go wrong? And the other kids are like, I don't think you should, but he's like, no, I'm going to do it. So
yeah, no worries.
Yeah, no, surely everything will be fine. All I have to do is not untether from my tether, which seems fairly easy to do, but we'll find out it's not that easy to do because he goes outside, he does a spacewalk. Just as he leaves, we cut back to a dream Marnie is having on the planet. She is also having a dream where the plant god thing is talking to her, and it's trying to seduce her. And we learn a little bit more about her. She's actually like one of the main characters that we get to learn about, because it goes into her psyche. Like, why does she want to be, or why was she on this mission? Like, and we learn like, oh, her parents basically shipped her off. Like they didn't want her. They're like, you're not doing anything for us, but you can get us money if we like give you to the state, I guess, to do this mission. So, and because she was good with plants at whatever job she was training to do, they're like, oh, you can be the botanist and it'll work out. So we learned that she's pretty sad about, how everything is with her parents and her family. And she just feels like an outcast. And so, it's pretty nice for this plant god to be like, come join me. All I require is sacrifices. It'll be fine. And then we cut away before she like says anything. But there's definitely an image where it looks like she's thinking about it real hard. This reminded me of, have you ever seen the Tales from the Crypt movie Demon Knight?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where like Billy Zane, the devil, is trying to like convince people to get possessed, to join his side that are inside the weird like bloodline or the blood force field from Jesus's blood. And like, so there's all these like scenes where people are like either going to sleep or they just go into like a dream state. And Billy Zane's like, hey, how about you hang out with me and I'll give you all the stuff you want, like I'll make you feel real cool, and like, that just reminded me of this, like basically the plants doing that to them. And, so, we see like right when she's thinking about it, it just cuts to black. So you're like, I don't know what that means. I'm not sure. Now, what did you think, John? Did you think that she was like taking over, or what did you think was going to happen there?
I mean, it definitely felt like she was having a hard time. Like she was like, no, but it like her eyes and like
she was saying no, but her eyes were saying yes. Is that what you're saying, John?
No, her mouth was quivering, but then her eyes looked like they were, they kind of like were watering and stuff, and like it looked like she was having like oh no, I don't think so, but like Frodo, or not Frodo, Bilbo in Lord of the Rings, where he's like no and yes, he has that quick turn, so it's kind of like that, like maybe there's something going on with her.
She's definitely tempted. She's tempted.
Her botanist background, maybe.
That's right.
Oh, the plants are my friend.
That's probably got something to do with it, I would imagine. So we cut back to the ship now. We see the one of the engineers, the guy that went outside. He's outside. He's looking at stuff. He's like, "There's nothing wrong with the engines. I don't know what's going on." Then,
yeah, I did like that they were like, I thought something was broken. I don't see anything broken. Like, why is the ship saying like this shit is broken? Because there's nothing. Right. I'm not seeing anything wrong with this.
Well, the ship's not even saying anything's broken. It's just not doing anything. Like it's just holding its pattern. Like it's not moving or anything. So yeah. And then he's like, "Oh no, I think it's okay. I'm just gonna like push off so I can get a wider view." And they're like, "I don't know. Like maybe you shouldn't because your tether is like right there." And he's like, "No, all I got like what? Am I gonna undo my tether?" And then he looks behind him as a shadow approaches. We don't see what the shadow is. And then he literally just like untethers himself. Like he's like, "What am I stupid? And I'm gonna untether myself?" And then he untethers himself. Like so, I thought that was kind of funny actually, where he's like, "What am I, an idiot?" Clink, and then like floats off into space. And,
yeah, I did like that a lot too.
Yeah, I actually thought this was probably the most horrific scene in the book, where he's like floating away and like he's like whatever the plant is showing him. Or if it's taken over his mind, we don't know. But either way, he unclasps his tether and he floats off into space while the kids are screaming like, "Please, you can't, just grab the tether, put it back on." And he's just floating back into space. And this reminded me a lot of 2001 Space Odyssey, where the second guy goes into space and then, he goes to fix the satellite outside and then Hal kills him and just like cuts his air hose and he's just floating away out into space. And it was like, what the fuck? Like that's super creepy. But yeah, this reminded me of that. The look of horror on the other children inside the spaceship's faces are like, it's very, very believable. It was like, oh wow, this is really fucked up. And then we get that's how part 2 ends. Part 3 starts. We're back on the planet as Marnie wakes up from that crazy dream she was having. And everybody's acting normal. I thought they were going to be a little bit more like, I thought for sure she's been taken over. And now we're going to get like little hints that she's evil. And the thing is, they don't find Kurt. So the Marine guy never came back, and they're like, well, what do we do? And of course they're like, well, let's just keep walking. No need to go back to the spaceship. I'm sure Kurt is fine. He is a Marine. It was like, well, I don't know about that. I mean, you're on a mysterious planet and shit, so why would he not return unless something bad is going on? This also reminded me of Pitch Black. I don't know if you've seen that movie with Vin Diesel, but just like the aliens and shit going around on the planet that's abandoned. Have you seen that?
I don't remember. I don't remember if I've seen. It's in the Riddick trilogies, right?
It's the first Riddick movie, yeah.
Yeah, I don't recall. I don't think so.
We're gonna have to watch that for movie night some night because it's fucking awesome. So
nice.
So anyway, the architect Jonas and the botanist Marnie are now on their own. They don't have Kurt the Marine to protect them, but they still decide, even though they know nothing, they literally are like, well, we have knives, and we have no idea how to use them, but other than pointy end go into bad thing. Like I would think that's pretty much, they have no skills at all. That's the way they make it sound. Like literally, if you are a botanist, you were taught about botany and only botany for like your entire life until they sent you into space. So yeah, I don't even know if they know how to like run or anything because they never show them running. So literally, I think they don't have a childhood and they're raised in like a classroom specific or like a facility where they just, this is the botanist track and this is the architect track. And you will never do anything. Yeah, you don't get to do anything except that shit. So they're walking. They go towards the temple more and stuff. They see more runes that have hieroglyphics that show a ship that looks very similar to theirs carved into it. And they're like, wait a second. Other ships like ours, how is that possible? And then they deduce, and then this part I was confused on, John, so maybe you can clarify. They deduce that possibly these were the other missions of terraforming that they'd sent out, but like we said earlier, they don't hear anything back from them, and they just assume they're all good. Just comms are bad because they're so far away or something. But they do say it's not to the same planet that they've been sending everybody. They've been sending them to different planets. So maybe it's in all the same solar system, so they keep coming across the same, planet or whatever.
Maybe they pass by the same planet, yeah.
Maybe, but they don't really explain it. And I was just kind of like, all right, I guess I'll just go with it. It's one of those story things I wish they had put a little bit more effort into explaining because it was like, wait a second, some of that doesn't quite make sense to me. But, maybe that was just me. I don't know.
You know what it is? It's you leave space dock and then you go towards this planet and then you either go left or right.
Yeah, it's Albuquerque, right? You got to take a left at Albuquerque. That's what it is. So, yeah, and then we come back to the ship, and the girls, the one engineer that's left and Jane are of course freaking out because their buddy just died or something. He let himself go into space, and but Jane is literally the most useless person in the world. She just grabs onto the other engineer's leg as the engineer's trying to figure out possibly how to save her partner, and Jane's literally like a dog, like a little child, like crawling on her leg. Can't let go.
What are we gonna do?
Yeah, what are we gonna do? And she tells Jane, like, get the fuck off of me. I'm trying to figure shit out. And then all of a sudden, like, alarm goes off. And we're like, wait, what's going on with there? We don't know why the alarm went off. It just starts going off. Then we come back to the planet, and Marnie and Jones are back. Is it Jones or Jonas? Jonas.
Jonas.
Yeah. Marnie and Jonas are finally at the temple. They reach the inside of it. And they start looking, and they're like, wow, there's a bunch of weird plants in here, huh? They're moving. We're getting readings, but I don't see anything. Maybe there's winged stuff inside or flying things. I still don't understand why they don't realize it's the fucking plants that are moving or all around them. Because they literally see them and go, hey, the plant's moving. I don't know what all this moving stuff is on our radar, though. Like, the fuck? Something else that could have been useful explanation.
Obviously flying things.
All they needed was one line that says, we only pick up we only pick up sentient things on our radars or whatever, or on our sensors. That's all you had to say. And then they would be like, oh, this plant is weird. Like, because then they would be misidentifying it as not sentient. They didn't say that, though. So I'm like, if I was on an alien planet with moving plants and then I saw a bunch of shit moving on my radar, I'd be like, obviously it's the plants. Yeah, it's the fucking plants.
It's M. Night. It's the plants.
There you go. What's that movie he did?
The Happening.
The Happening. You got to do it, John. You got to do your impression of Wahlberg saying, "The plants, they don't know what's going on." Whatever. I can't do it. You do it.
I don't remember. I don't remember this.
John used to do a great Wahlberg impression of The Happening. So you've disappointed me and all of our listeners, John. It's your fault. So. You should have prepared.
I'm sorry.
You should have known I was going to ask you.
I should have looked it up beforehand. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, listeners. Say hi to your mother for me.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
That's all you'll get.
Yes. So anyway, yeah, we see there's like a lot of carvings inside this temple that have very, it's like a plant god, obviously. Like it kind of looks like a Cthulhu monster, like I said, like from Hellboy, where there's like a giant body and then there's vines and shit that are coming down that look like tentacles. And they're still like, I wonder what's going on here. Like they don't. It's like oblivious. This also reminded me. I don't know if you've seen the movie The Ruins, John, but it's like a horror movie about these people going into like a Mayan temple, like those pyramid temples in Guatemala, and they, I think you're on mute.
Did I accidentally mute myself?
You did mute yourself. What the heck, John?
Wow. No, I haven't seen The Ruins.
Okay, yeah, and it's like vines attack them inside. It's like an ancient monster that has been hidden inside the temple. So this is kind of like that to me as well. But we see we cut back to the spaceship, and as the engineer is trying to go to see what the alarm is, it turns out someone has turned the H2O down. Like I guess they just turned off the air purifier is what I'm assuming. And so H2O was like going down. When I say air purifier, obviously, John, I mean the O2 purifier, not like the Dyson air purifier. You just had a smile on your face that made it look like that's an idiot. It's not an air purifier.
No. I knew what you meant.
Sure you did. Anyway. So yeah, someone's obviously messed with the systems. And then we see like another this is another time we see a tentacle come out of nowhere. Or like a vine, and it looks like it's going to attack her, and then she turns around like, whoa, and then it's gone. So I was like, is this in her mind, or did the vine actually turn, like the sentient vine went to the computer, went like, whoop, and like, touched the screen and made it go down. Like, that's just a weird, like, you never know fully if the vine is here until the end, right? So she goes looking around. She looks through the weapons. She doesn't get a weapon. Which I'm like, why the fuck are you not getting a weapon? It says weapon.
Well, she does have her she's got like a foldable knife or sword thing on her.
Oh, that's great. I'm assuming there's real weapons in weapon storage for the Marines.
Yeah, probably, and yeah.
Maybe a flamethrower will be good against the fucking plant. You know what I'm saying? But who knows? Whatever. So she doesn't get a weapon. She just walks straight by weapon storage. Oh, wait, no, she does go back in, but she picks up a knife. That's right. So she goes and gets a knife, which is not a weapon you'd want to use if you don't know anything about knives or how they work, training.
It's close combat stuff, especially. Yeah, that's like, come on now.
Yeah, I don't know. But so we see that, she's obviously realizing that something is not right in the ship. Something is probably in the ship, and it's not Jane. Because Jane also, like, just got left behind. She's like, you stay here, Jane, you fucking whiny bitch. I'm gonna go walk around like a real person who understands that this is a life or death situation, and so she's looking around. Then we come back to the planet, and I mean, there's the kids, Jonas and Marnie are just finding regular, God stuff for the most part. Like, there's statues and carvings of this god. It's obviously a temple of worship.
And Jonas is like, we should split up. It's just the two of us. One person of the three that went down, one's already gone missing. And you know what? You and I should split up.
Yeah. Well, but it's not just because for no reason. I think the plant is trying to influence them. And we see the plant even say to Jonas, and only he can hear it, go alone. So then it's much like Cabin in the Woods. We were like, we should stick together. And then they released like the stupid gas or whatever. And then he's like, we should split up. Totally. Like, we should totally go our separate ways. So it was much like that. But they do stick together. No, they do split up, right? Yeah, they
No,
split up.
yeah.
Yeah, they split up. But nothing really happens other than Jonas finds a coupling on an arm. Is what it looks like.
Yeah, there's somebody was there and he's walking and he sees some, I guess, like an arm sticking out from under the plants, and it's the same
Oh
calm
no,
kind
no,
of
no!
thing
It's
he
not an
had.
arm. That's his arm. He has a flashlight on his wrist,
Oh, okay.
gauntlet or whatever, and his sensor that's been like his radar. And when he looks at the thing he finds on the ground, it looks exactly the same as the one he has. So he's like, "Holy shit! These were our old people. They also fell here." Then immediately they get like more radar, findings, and starts pinging, going beep 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 beep, and they're like, what is it? It's moving around us, and they still don't fucking get it. They still don't see like the vines around them, because then that's the end of this issue. It leaves it on a cliffhanger, much like Aliens, like in the movie Aliens, when they're like, it's all around us, where is it? And they don't see anything, and they're like, I don't see anything. And then they look above the
Where
ceiling.
are they? Yeah,
yeah.
That's what I
What were you saying?
No, that's what I was saying. It was like, yeah, very alien like I still don't get it. Like, I don't see anything on this, but there's all these little bleeps around us.
Yeah, I was like, look, it's obviously the fucking plant, and they can see the plants growing towards them, and they still don't realize it. So now we see we cut back. That was the end of part 3. This is part 4. We cut back to the ship, and we see the engineer going around, and she's now calling for Jane because she can't find her, and she's kind of scared by herself now. So she's looking for Jane, and she's like, come on, we have to stick together. But Jane is hiding in the cryo storage where this is where she has grown meat samples. That's supposed to be like the food. Once they land on the planet, they can grow meat.
It's a meat alternative. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing. But then as she gets in there, she hears something, and we see like a little vine come out, and she's like, hello? And then we also see that the cryo pods for the meat have broken open. Like if something's eating the meat or whatever, like getting, broken into it. So I thought that was interesting. Like, okay, the plant is after not just humans or sentient things, but also it just wants the meats, as you do, I guess, right? So yeah, and then we come back to the planet, and like I said, there's beeping on the screen. They see vines growing towards them, and Jonas and Marnie are like, what could it be? What could this be? What is coming around us? Maybe they're flying things. I don't know. They're just oblivious to the ground, I guess. They don't see the vines. And then Marnie has a weird fugue state where she says something in some ancient language, and then Jonas is like, Marnie, what'd you say? What's going on? And then she's like, what? I just said we should get out of here. And he's like, no, you didn't. You said something in ancient plant or whatever the fuck, language.
Plantal tongue.
Yeah. So they decide it's time to hightail it out of here. They get out. And this is where, after that moment, we definitely see Marnie's eyes look a little bit different. They look a little bit, there's a weird red, a slight red tint to them.
Yeah.
Like she's been taken over. And the whole time, when she had the dream, I thought for sure she's taken over now. And because they couldn't find Kurt either, I was like, oh, surely she left in the middle of the night and killed Kurt and then came back to sleep and then woke up and was like, I don't know where he is. So I thought that was going on in the background. Apparently that's not what was going on in the background, but I assumed that. So when this moment happened, I was like, finally they're showing it, because there was lots of points where Marnie could have been, double crossing Jonas, and she didn't take that, and I was confused for a little bit. But then I guess now that she spoke the plant language, it's completely taken over her, or convinced her that she needs to give it sacrifices. So,
sacrifice.
Yeah, you always need sacrifice. So finally they find a plant that grabs him, and Marnie cuts it with the knife and is able to break free. But we can tell in her eyes that this is where I was like, well, she could have just let it kill him or something, but I don't know why exactly they kind of string it out if she's not evil, or if she is evil later on. So this whole thing, I was like, oh, I guess she's not evil. That's weird. I kept going back and forth whether Marnie was evil or not, because they keep drawing her with squinty eyes, like she is evil, I'm gonna get you, in her shaded cloak or whatever. And also, where did they get these cloaks? They walked around in the rain for 2 days. without anything but their suits, and now they're like, we better cover up for this rain. Like randomly, I don't know. I thought that was weird too.
Yeah, no, they definitely didn't have them initially, but I guess they pulled them out of their packs from later.
Okay, I have another question, John. So when Marnie cuts this plant off of Jonas's leg, it melts the blade, correct?
Yeah. He says it's burning him. Help her.
Yes.
Or help him. And yeah, so she cuts it and then it melts the blade too. So I guess it has acid alien blood too.
Right. But then when we cut back to the ship and this is later on. And later on, when the engineer runs into the plant and tries to hit it, it does not melt her blade. So I was confused.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah, we'll get to it, but I was like, that's not consistent. Look, it either has acid blood or it doesn't. Maybe it's like it can grow different variations of itself.
Yeah, it's plants. Plants,
yeah.
Man.
Plants, but once again, they don't clarify any of that, so that's just me guessing. But so the engineer, we cut back to the spaceship, and the engineer is like going to the only place that she can think Jane is at, which is the biolab, because Jane is the bioengineer. And she goes in there, and she finds Jane completely wrapped up in vines and taken over. I kind of wish this would have been cool right here. This would have been a big moment for Jane if we got the seduction, vision that Jane has. And it's like, don't you want to be part of something bigger? You've always wanted to have friends. Well, I have lots of friends in me and stuff, right? Because she's always wanted to fit in, but everybody treats her like shit. And then when we don't see what she says necessarily, right? But then when we cut back to the engineer and the engineer goes into the biolab room, we see like some godlike version of like with tentacles coming out of her and vines and shit growing. Jane being like fully possessed and of the god body of like the hive mind or whatever. That would have been cool. But we just see Jane like hanging from the ceiling with a bunch of vines.
Yeah, and like right before when we see Jane in there and she's like looking at her things, I almost thought for a minute too that maybe that the thing she was growing was like part of this, like maybe like it was sentient as well, like maybe it were becoming sentient, like because if you like, because when she looks at it, the one in her the little tube moves like towards her.
I think it was eating the meat that was in that tube because she pulls the tube out of the meat fridge. And then she's like, oh my God, look at that little thing. And instantly I would be like, fuck that thing. What the hell is this? Like you're on a fucking spaceship in the middle of space. Have you never seen Alien? That's what I want to know about these kids. Are they not on the movie track in school? Is that what it is? They're not cinematographers?
Yeah, no, they don't. Yeah, they don't get to. They specifically don't show them any of those movies, so they're oblivious to those things.
You will never see a piece of art unless you are an artist. That doesn't make any sense, but that's kind of what it seems like. Like they're just very sheltered kids, even though they shouldn't be. But
I thought when she opened the door that Jane would be like covered in vines and be like, "You're one of us."
Yeah. That's what I thought too, but it's not. But the vines do start to attack are strangling Jane's body. They start to attack the engineer, and she is able to run out. And this is where I was like, why did this not acid? She runs through the door. She's able to push the door closed, even though it's one of those sliding space doors, that should be like, psh, psh. But
it moves on its own.
Yeah, it should move on its own, but it doesn't. And she's able to push it closed, and it actually like closes so hard that it cuts the alien vine off. And then she steps on it with her foot, and it does not burn her foot off, which is what I thought was going to happen. I was like, oh, hell yeah. She's going to step on it like you do, and then like it's going to melt her foot off, and then it's going to be real fucked up at the end here. No, she just steps on it and stops moving. She's like, whew, that was crazy. I'm all alone. So yeah, I don't know. You didn't catch that, John? You didn't think it should have alien blood?
I guess I didn't think of that first. Yeah, because it looked like because it knocks like the her little knife sword thing out of her hand, and then I thought maybe like it got her a little bit, but then I guess it doesn't. She cuts the door or she cuts the one that out the tentacle off from through the door, the vine. It drops. Yeah, she steps on it, and it didn't burn her. That's weird. I didn't know.
It didn't burn her or the door or the ship. Like I was waiting for it to melt the metal. Yeah, and that would cause like a whole thing.
It's only acid on the planet's surface, Matt,
Obviously, when it mixes with the atmosphere of the planet.
Atmosphere, yeah.
That's what it is. So now the only person left is the engineer. She's on the ship. She's like, oh my God. And then she starts hearing this alien language in her head, or in her headset, because she tries to reach out to the plane and says, like, are you there, Jonas? Marnie? What's the other kid's name? Kurt. The Marine.
Kurt, yeah.
Kurt, are you there? And all she hears is someone saying, like, the ancient, Vine language. She's like, what the hell? So then she finally breaks down, has her freak out. This is a moment I could understand. Like, even if you're trained, at some point you break down because you're the only one left, So, like, you're
you see all of your, your crew members on the thing die in front of you, basically. Like, yeah, I feel her.
Yeah, feel that one for sure. But so then we cut back down to the planet, and we see Marnie and Jonas aren't anywhere near the ship. So who was speaking to her on the comms? We don't know. So Jonas and Marnie are trying to find their way back to the ship, but they stop. I guess this is one thing I'm like, how do you sleep? You're like, we're all alone now on the planet. We've been walking for like a while. Let's go camp out right here. Like, I don't understand that. I would you at least have watch, right? You at least have a watch going on. Some talk about something like that, right?
Yeah, like I'll sleep for a couple hours, you watch, and then you can sleep for a couple hours. I'll watch, and then we'll go.
But that's not what happens. Marnie's like, I'm going to sleep, and Jonas is like, me too. So Jonas, before he goes to sleep, he sees another, like, this is a different area, right? So this is like a different cave or something that they find, and there's more paintings on it. Also, it doesn't seem like a very good covered area because there's fucking rain everywhere around them. So still not covered. I don't know how you sleep while the rain's just pouring on you, but whatever. So then we see like
maybe it's just not as bad.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But we see the paintings on the wall again, and on that we get a little history of possibly what happened. We see a meteorite landing on the Earth. We see a plant begin to grow from that meteorite. Then we see a human or possibly an animal approach it, and then that figure is raising its hand like it's a god, or like it's praising a god, and we see vines coming up from the ground, and then we see multiple people surrounding a tentacle, and they're like praying to it, and looks like they're giving something to it. So it definitely looks like this is a plant god for sure, or at least people were treating it like that. But then as Jonas hears something, he turns around and he's like, what? And he sees Marnie standing there, and this is where we get it. Marnie's like, basically turns on him and is like, you don't deserve it. Like, I deserve it. I'm the botanist. I care about plants. It loves me, or whatever, basically is what she's saying. And then she fucking slits Jonas's throat, which I kind of wish they showed it, but you just see him standing there like, what? Like, Jonas is like, what are you doing, Marnie? What? And then as she's saying, like, you can't be the messenger if you only desire to be the god. You have to want to be one with the plant or whatever. And then you just see like blood fall as the lantern clashes down that Jonas was holding. So it's kind of like, I kind of wish they would have showed him like decapitated, whatever happened. I don't know what happened, but
yeah, or at least like him on the ground, like bleeding out or something.
Yeah, something like that. So then we see Marnie walking. She goes back to the ship, which doesn't seem that far away, but they could have just walked for 20 more minutes and then got to the ship, but they decided to stay there. So as she's getting to the ship, all of a sudden, Kurt comes out of nowhere, the Marine.
Guess he reappears.
And he's like, but he ain't looking good. He's got vines coming in and out of his mouth. Now, this is how I pictured Jane was going to look. Like,
yeah,
possessed by this thing. It kind of reminds me of in Hellboy at the movie at the end when Rasputin like gets shot or whatever, and then the thing comes out of him, like the Cthulhu monster, and then it begins to grow. Like, that's kind of what I thought was going to happen. It doesn't. It's not cool like that, but he comes up to her and he's like, help me. And of course, Marnie's like, fuck you, because he was always a dick to her. And then he's saying like, help me, but then he wants to get on the ship, and then he is now possessed by the plant, and he's saying, if we go back on the ship, we can get back to our main ship, and then we can take that main ship to other worlds and spread this thing. I have it in me. Like, look at all the vines coming out of my nose and mouth and eyes and shit. And Marnie's like, no, fuck you, and leaves him there. And then he grabs onto the plane wing as it's taking off, and she steps. And I guess I guess she doesn't need to have like be in the ship, or maybe the ship just takes a while to actually lift off the ground because she's outside of the ship, like on the wing of it. And Kurt grabs the wing and is like, no, you take me with you. And then she steps on his fingers as it's taking off. So I'm like, you might want to get inside the spaceship before you get into space. That might be a good idea. But apparently she does, because we cut back to the ship and we see the engineer kind of in fetal position, terrified. And then all of a sudden she hears beeping, and it's like, oh, the shuttle is going to dock, like going to come back. And then she answers, or she opens the door. Marnie comes in, is like, oh yeah, they all died on the last one. Don't worry about it.
It sucks. They all died.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe it. They all died. So, so then she's talking to the engineer, and
she's like, guess what I found when we were down there, though?
Yeah, she's like,
really cool plant.
It was great. This great plant. I'll show you it. We can use it as food. Like I've analyzed it enough with no materials or tools, and I can tell you for sure it's definitely going to be great to eat. And the engineer's like, I guess so, but like real quick, I'm gonna go this way, and then she kind of runs ahead of Marnie, who says really creepily, right behind you, and like. And then we see her pass an axe. I love that there's just an axe on the wall, just hanging. Like, why would you need an axe on a spaceship? But, you know.
It's a fire axe, obviously.
Yeah, those work great on sliding pneumatic doors or whatever the fuck they have for their ship stuff. So, anyway, she has an axe now, and then she's running, and then we see Marnie, like, look down the hallway that she turned a corner where the engineer should be, and she's not there. There's like a really long hallway, and she's like, huh, she's on to me. So Marnie cuts her hand open, and we see a little vine coming out of it. And then that's it. And then it ends. We cut away to space, and we see the ship is now gone and moving. So it seems it was successful.
Yeah, did Marnie kill her, and now the ship's moving? Or we don't know yet.
Or is the planet moving away? I don't know.
I took it as the ship moving, because it looks like the ship's engine is like on now.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Well, that was the ending, John. So that was my main beef with this. I'm like, there should be a issue 6 where we find out what happened. I want to see the engineer girl die. How did she die? Or maybe Marnie got killed by the engineer girl with the axe, and that's the engineer taking off.
Yeah, we don't know if we have an alien situation where she ends up killing the plant, and like she's like escapes and is like, I have to warn people, or so if this it's is like
here. Let me pitch part 2 to you. Okay, so part 2 we cut into the ship, and it's the engineer, and she's huddling in fear. You can see she's kind of bloody. She's got cuts on her, like there's been a fight, but she's got out barely, and then. We see her rushing back as a shadow of Marnie is coming across, but now Marnie's got like an arm missing, but it's replaced with tentacles and shit, like, make it all scary like that. Then you see the engineer, as she like sees the shadow, she runs out of wherever she's hiding and runs into the weapons room. And just as Marnie comes into the weapons room after her, the engineer has a flamethrower and burns her alive, right?
Hell yeah. Like some fucking what is it? The Thing.
Yes,
just,
exactly.
Yeah.
If we're gonna compare other, or make this a very similar movie to other horror movies, let's do The Thing, The Alien, all that stuff. And so, oh man, there should totally, now that I said The Alien, because it's just Alien, right? I'm like, there's got to be a movie called The Alien that's just one of those like direct to DVD Walmart, ones that tries to trick people into thinking it's Alien.
Yeah.
You remember those, John, when you were a kid?
Oh, hell yeah.
Do they still make those?
Yeah, they have to.
Okay.
Because every time I'm on Vudu, I'm looking at movies that are on sale, and like I'll get through so there's like 50 movies, and I'll get through like the first 20 or 30, and I'm like, I recognize most of the titles at least, and then I get into ones that are like Shark Man and
no, it's like Transform Bots. Like Transform Bots or something, but it's and it's got a very similar Optimus Prime looking robot on the front, and it's like, did this fool someone's grandma? Like some kid was like, I want Transformers for Christmas. And then some grandma went to Walmart and was like, here we are. And then like bought, Transform bots.
That looks about right. I know it was only $5.
And then can you imagine the kid that opens it and is like, yeah, Transform bots. The hell? What is this? But then if it's a true like kid, the kid ends up growing to love Transform bots. It doesn't like Transformers. It's just like, this is what I got, so I'm gonna go hard in the paint.
I love my grandma.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm not gonna disappoint her, make her feel bad. I'll watch Transform bots. And then he's like, you know what? People need to give Transform bots a shot. Like,
yeah.
You don't understand how good this is.
Well, it's like, Power Rangers was really popular. So they made Battleborgs. They made,
it's Beetleborg, sir.
Cyber Samurai or whatever. Oh, Beetleborgs, whatever. You know what I mean?
Hey, I watched that.
You did. You were the kid we're talking about. You were the kid we were talking about. You were like, I can't find Power Rangers, so I'm gonna watch Beetleborgs.
I watched that one. What's the one you just said? It was like
Cyber Samurai with Matthew Lawrence.
Yes.
Yeah, I watched that very much so.
I remember watching that.
Yeah, there was also the Samurai something teenagers from Beverly Hills. I don't remember what that was, like the theme song. But yeah, it was very much just Power Rangers. But yeah, some other Japanese show they took the footage from and then just put like English speaking people talking under the masks.
Cut scenes.
Yeah. But anyway,
some kids and
Anyway. Yeah. Anyway, so John, what did you think about this for it being a cold read? You just picked it up randomly, after it won the poll. What'd you think of it, and what would you give it?
So I liked it overall. Like, I didn't hate it. It was enjoyable. Like you said, like a lot of themes that I'm familiar with. I just feel like we didn't get any. We got a lot of punches pulled, and like we didn't get what it could have been.
Right.
And I get this is probably for a little bit younger audience. Like, it's probably for like 12 to 16-year-old. But like it still felt like there was a little. It still could have given a little something more without like going too hard in the paint. I will say, paint wise, the art I did enjoy. I think that was probably one of the strongest points of it. It was kind of like watercolory. We didn't really talk about. I really liked the design of the ship. It kind of was like a hotel looking thing in space.
Yeah.
It was unique. And I like the idea of this, plant creature. Like, not that hasn't necessarily been done. We've hit that. I know we've watched movies with some kind of killer plant.
Sure.
But I like
like Little Shop of Horrors. It's just like
I like the idea of this killer plant creature. But yeah, I wish that like either Jane, like you said, would have like you're like, hey Jane, what's going on? And then she's like
oh!
one with the plant, or like that we got one more, and there was technically one more issue, but it was not much of anything. It was just Kurt, like, we see what happened to him. He walks around and like has visions, and then he gets taken over by
it was like a weird afterword that they included where you see, and this would have been cool, like I said, with Jane, where he had one of the flash moments where the thing was tempting him, and it was about his dad being like, you want me to love you, right, buddy? Like, I love you now. If you just grab my hand with the tentacles on it, I'll love you even more. And yeah. So that if they had put this in the comic, I would have liked that.
Yeah, I think that would have been fun. And like I said, had we gotten one more, I think, where we got like a final showdown kind of, because that's even a good cliffhanger to leave it on, as far as like a final showdown of like whoever wins, whether it's Marnie now as the creature, or
the engineer,
Ariana, or what, the engineer girl. Whether you have them win, then you have like, okay, now like, do you have, is she going back like, oh, she's got to warn people, like, because this is, this isn't the first time this has happened,
right?
Or like, do you have the plant people be like, oh, okay, now I have a ship and I can go and like colonize my plant stuff elsewhere. And it would be cool to have, like, that's the beauty of the Alien film, or the Thing, is like you have little bits of like things happening, and then you finally have the big creature reveal.
Right.
So I think that would have been kind of been like kind of put this comic over to like, oh man, yeah, like I enjoyed it a lot. I would recommend it. I would say like I liked it. It was good. If we get more, I might pick it up because I would be curious to
Yeah,
see,
I would definitely read a
if
volume 2 of this.
yeah, like so I would like to get more. So I guess that's definitely a bonus for it. It makes me hope that if there's more to this, I would definitely like to know what happens. But I felt a little lackluster overall on the where the ending came for this. And then like you said, like there were a couple of things where like the kids were doing their roles sometimes, but then also then they were a little more kiddish. And like you said, I felt like yeah, okay, they're kids, so they're gonna have those moments. But also it uh didn't feel like we got enough like an overarching character or of like you said, either like a ship AI or an adultish figure, one of them being like the true
Right.
like
Like the
leader of this.
leader.
Like no,
Yeah.
yeah, we never really felt like anyone was like the truly maybe Jonas a little, I don't know, because he still was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the yeah, like what the life is. I wish there would have
I
been
keep
one
seeing
like
this beeping on my screen, but I don't know
yeah.
what it's coming from. Hey, look at all these moving plants.
We should have had one de facto like person kind of like being the obvious, like even if they didn't want to be the leader, like obviously was like the like, okay, this is the person we're all gonna rely on
Right.
eventually.
You know what would have been cool
Yeah.
if they had made Kurt that person, but since he's such a dick, like you don't like him, you don't want him to be that leader, but like that's part of the push and pull of the reading experience. And then we get that scene where he gets corrupted by his dad, and you get sad for him because you realize that's why he is such a dick. And then you turn him, and then he ends up being like leading them into a big trap or some shit like that. That would have been a way to go.
Yeah. But overall, like I said, I liked it, and I did like the art. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one. I'm gonna give it a 6.
Wow. You're gonna give it less than me, or yeah, less than me, which is surprising because usually you are more forgiving or nice or whatever to stuff. But
Yeah.
I hated the first issue of this. I was like, fuck these kids. I was like, this is just Alien with kids, right? This is like Kid Alien or something, you know? This is like Alien for young children. And then, but as they like went away and we got more of the story of the plant god and all that stuff, I was into it once the horror elements really started moving, you know? I don't care about the people on the ship. I definitely wanted to have more, like, know more about the civilization. Like, what are these roles these kids are in? How strict are they? Because, like I said, if you're sending children out into space with, like you said, no parental figure, or they have to be at a level of maturity already at age 11 to 17, where they are, you know, not acting like children from nowadays that got sent into space, you know? So that's what I want to do, an explanation of maybe that could have explained why, like they're still encouraged to be children, but they have to take their job seriously or whatever. So, but all the little stuff they did include in, as far as like about their civilization back on Earth, I was totally into. I like that stuff a lot. It kind of reminded me of Spaceship Troopers somewhat, you know, where it's like, they're recruiting people and pulling them out of whatever class they are in to be part of these missions, which makes them kind of like chattel or whatever, but they get a bunch of notoriety and money and stuff, like incentives to do that, which is kind of like our, you know, join the military now, where it's like you get a free college education and all this stuff. Not free, but
yeah,
because freedom ain't free, John. So
there's a hefty fucking fee.
There is, yeah. So but yeah, I fully, by the end of this, I was so mad when it was like, I turned the page and it's like, end. I'm like, what? We're just getting to the, like, we haven't reached the climax yet. It's the very tip before the climax, and you cut it there. I want to see what happens to this engineer. And then they just like show the spaceship flying off. So I'm like, motherfucker. So yeah, I would totally read what happens in the second volume of this, if there ever is one. Because I felt like it left me hanging pretty big on that. But even with that, I wanted to find out what happened. Like, it wasn't me being like, man, fuck this. It was me going like, what? How dare you? Like, I want to know what happened. So I actually quite enjoyed this for something I was so biased against at the beginning, where I was like, John picked this stupid book. And it's a stupid flower book, and that's the only reason why I picked it. And I never heard of this, and who's this writer, and who's this artist? Because I'm like that. Yeah, I get like that a little bit in my head sometimes, but I still give stuff a chance once I start reading it. I talk myself down. I'm like, all right, Matt, we're going to read this. We're going to give it a shot. We're going to try to not judge it too harsh until the end, right? So, but by the end of it, I liked it a lot. So I'm going to give it a 6.5, 6.5. So I thought this was pretty much like you could give this to, like you said, like a high schooler that could read it, and I bet it would make them want to, read comics more and whatnot. So, but yeah. So with that being said, I think we're done. We've covered everything else. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about with this?
No, I don't think so. I think it was a fun overall. Like I said, especially not knowing what to expect, and I think it was a good poll. So
yeah. Actually, yeah. Out of all the things, if you had made me read Man Thing, I would have been way more mad about it. But and surprisingly, we did have a tie between this and Man Thing, but we chose not to do Man Thing because maybe in the future we will do a like fuck Matt poll, where it's like, here's books that Matt doesn't want to read, make him read one of these. So maybe that'll be it. But if there's a tie, I'm going to pick this one over Man Thing. So. But like we said, that was a Patreon poll. If you would like to be a part of our Patreon so that you could vote on these second episodes of the month, and also you get a free exclusive podcast every month, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, where you can vote and you get, like we said, a free exclusive episode. And this month, the exclusive episode is the finale of our Watchmen go through, where we were going through 4 issues of Watchmen each week. So we're on the part 3 of that Watchmen. And this is the finale. So we're finishing it. We're going to give you our thoughts on the full book and all that stuff. So, like we said, if you would like to join that Patreon, that's patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And
we should thank our patrons.
Yes. We got a new patron, actually. So let's thank our new patron first. Thank you very much, Sadie, for joining our Patreon. Hopefully you're enjoying all the Hellblazer podcasts. We'd also like to thank Kyla and Christian and Otaku Mike and Hoku and Matthew, right?
Matthew.
Okay,
yep.
I got them all. We're growing, so I'm losing track sometimes of all the names. So many, 6 names. But yes, like we said, if you would like to join so we can try to remember to say your name on these podcasts, you can join at patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And with that, we'll see you guys on next week's exclusive episode of The Watchmen. And then after that, we are going to continue for next month's first episode, our journey through the Ultimate Marvel Universe with X-Men, or Ultimate X-Men Volume 1. So
Ultimate X-Men. I'm excited because that's one I know I didn't read when I read some of the Ultimates line.
Yeah. Now, I have read this, and it was a long time ago, and I remember not being super impressed, but that was kind of before I wasn't quite into X-Men or anything yet. So at least this way, I liked the show when I was a kid, and I liked the 90s stuff, but this was completely different. We'll talk about why it kind of rubbed me the wrong way when I first read it. But yeah, I'm excited to get back into it. It's written by Mark Miller, who wrote the Ultimates, and, is writing a bunch of other shit we did, like American Jesus and stuff like that. So it's one of his earlier stuff. I think this is his first Marvel stuff. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, so check out in June, the first episode is going to be that. And we will see you guys on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.